Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get going. We have a lot to cover in just a couple hours. Hope you got some wine, some refreshments, some apps. Our agenda. I'll just go down the list here. I won't read it to you. You can read it yourselves. Pokemon, you'll see what that's all about in a minute. The evolution's pretty cool. Rules of thumb. Rules of thumb are real important. Omni's rapid rehab checklist. Pretty cool. Take your notes. Chris, would you step forward? And
sure. All right, Chris.
Our Vice President.
So, thanks for having me. I specifically asked not to follow that beautiful accent. So, it's, now you're going to hear a little upstate New York mixed with New Jersey for the last 20 years, all right? So, I apologize in advance. All right? So, Omni asked me to be a part of this, and I came down 5 months ago to be the president of the Capital Region. So, under my umbrella is all the houses. See where my head's at, right? All the offices in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. proper. So I'm really excited about it, and as I did that, I'm learning the marketplace, and I'm getting really excited about everything. This is probably, and I mentioned this before to some of the agents that were here, the reason I did that, I had a pretty comfortable life up north, but this market is one of the most robust markets in definitely in the country and perhaps in the world. So I was excited about that, and Omni told me what he was doing here tonight, and we both had a very similar start into this industry. Prior to being licensed 17 years ago, I was an investor, and I bought and sold many houses up and down the Jersey Shore, all the way down to Florida, actually, pretty much up the whole East Coast. And that's how I got into this from the back end. My mom was in real estate, raised us as a single mom, 5 of us on real estate, and taught me the value of investments and everything else. So I was just excited because that's really how I dove into this business. I eventually got my license and got really, really busy in the early 2000s and had to kind of push that aside a little bit. I miss it every day, but we got busy and we had to kind of go one direction. But for you, those of you that are here, and this is what I kind of want to see, how many people in here are actual investors from the public that are coming in to hear what we're talking about? Great. And how many agents? Awesome, I love it. And how many of both? Yeah, and that's what it should be, right? So it's exciting. I'm really kind of pumped to see this, and Omni gave me a little sneak preview to what's going on here. But for me to see somebody, a leader like Omni, and I'm not going to say too much about him, but I love him. I think that he's really proactive in this business, and I think that he's doing all the right things, and he's really got a wealth of knowledge, and in talking to him a couple times and getting to know him a few months back, I was beyond impressed with his vast knowledge of investment, far surpasses mine. I got lucky with timing of the market, truthfully, and worked my butt off to find some great deals, but the science behind it is really what you need to know, and he is, I believe, a master at that. So good luck. I'm going to hang out with you guys tonight if you don't mind, and if anyone has any questions after this event, I'll hang out and we'll chat. All right? Thanks guys.
Chris. All right, let's get going with the meat of this thing. Omni started investing in real estate and business almost 20 years ago, and has done everything from wholesaling to flipping to cash flow to JVs and lending. And he's invested real estate from Hawaii to Virginia. And keep asking you, why did you go from Hawaii to Virginia? But anyway, here he is. Well, D.C., Maryland, and several states in between. Although during the week, his main focus and passion is coaching we agents here in the office, you will catch him almost every weekend on the road with his kids, searching for the next investment property or checking on an active investment project. Omni owns a real estate investment company. It's called New Leaf Redevelopers. His 7-year-old Brooklyn is the CEO. In training. I like to put pregnant pause there. Kingston, that's his oldest son. He's a financial analyst. His wife is the designer. And the youngest son, Austin, he's the muscle. He brings the muscle to the projects. As a family, they typically invest in 15 to 20 investments each year. Just over a year ago, Omni decided to combine his two passions, real estate agent coaching and real estate investing, to create this unique investor training program. Everybody, Meet Omni Casey.
Thank you very much, Rich. So, glad we fit. So we had over 100 people sign up with the rain. That thins out a little bit, so I'm glad. I thought you guys would have to double up. I was ready to have Barbara like split her seat here. But, no, we're good to go. So there's a lot that we want to cover today. Some of you have come to my other trainings. I have a series that I put together. I did 4 last year. The reality, it's much more than 4. I'm going to keep calling it 4, but you're going to realize it's going to be like 8 of 4. It's a much more in-depth training series. So every time we come together, we want to give you knowledge on real estate investing, because everyone, whether you're a buyer, whether you're a seller, whether you're a real estate agent, at some point you're going to be thinking about real estate investing. So I created a program called the Realtor Retirement Program. We went into wholesaling. We went into strictly flipping properties. We're going to take a slightly different path today. The goal is to, one, educate so that you're comfortable doing it, and we really want to build a network of comfortable investors, because I've seen firsthand, the bigger the network is of people that want to invest in real estate, it's easier to actually go out and invest and partner with somebody else. So hopefully you meet someone in this room here today that you can partner in on your next or your first real estate investment deal. So I'm glad that I have such an amazing team. Rich, like you said, he's our commercial guy. You're going to see here today the evolution path of a typical real estate investor. Part of that is commercial, part of that's multifamily. Rich is our guy. So your white card agent has a resource to partner with in Rich Blessing, and if you're taking that investment commercial path, he's definitely a key asset there. We will be coming out with an additional training specifically on multifamily and commercial. I'll make sure to invite each one of you if you're interested in that. I was super excited when Chris Anthony, when he came down here, because I heard his story, and it's almost identical to mine. I started out as a real estate investor before I got my license. And I've told this story many times. The only reason I got my license is, anybody, can you say that?
Commission.
No. My agent was terrible. He was my cousin. So, and I couldn't fire him because he's family. So I had to get my license just so I could do my own deals and have a competent agent, which was me. This is back in Hawaii, where I'm originally from. And I've been investing ever since. And I'm excited to kind of share this kind of path with you guys. So we're going to take that next step here. The first question is, when I sit down with someone and we're looking at getting into real estate investing, it's why, right? Why does someone want to invest in real estate? Why are you here interested in learning how to invest in real estate? Anybody want to just throw out their big why?
Passive income.
Passive income, okay, why?
For retirement.
Okay, so future retirement security, that's a pretty big one. A lot of people are looking at that, right? Because some people, you're going to see there's different paths to real estate investing. Some of it is a job. We're going to talk, some of it is a job. Talk about flipping. I have a whole class and a half on flipping. That's a job though, right? Because if you don't do the work and you don't flip the property, do you get paid?
No.
You don't get paid. So that's a job. It's through real estate investing, still a job though. Today we're going to talk more about passive income and a very specific process that we do that. And really, I owe so much of what I do to my favorite author. I bring him up almost every time, Robert Kiyosaki. So I'm from Hawaii, he's from Hawaii, so I had this natural connection. Anybody read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? All right? If you haven't read it, just do that. If you get nothing out of today, go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It will change your life. Complete different thought process on money and finances in general. A game changer. And he has a whole series of books, Cash Flow Quadrant. And I talk about this almost every time, but we have the E, B, S, and I quadrants. And those who have not been to one of my previous courses, can anybody tell me what the E quadrant is? Employee. You've been to one of my classes. No? Okay. So what's the S quadrant? Self-employed or small business. What's the B quadrant? Business. What's the I quadrant? Investor. Okay. So important, because everyone makes money from one of these quadrants, maybe two, maybe three, maybe all. And it's figuring out, how do I get out of this side, right? As an employee, you're here. Your time is money. I clock in, I get X amount of dollars. As a self-employed, which is a real estate agent, many of you are self-employed. If you own a small business, you're self-employed. That's great. However, you're still employed. You just are employing yourself. Because as a real estate agent, if you stop showing up and you stop working, how much money do you make? Zero, right? Your boss, yourself, fires you, hopefully. You got to go out and get some business in. So figuring out how do we take income, how do we take knowledge and skill from here and push some of that over to this side, the business, the B quadrant, and the I quadrant. The business side is when you get people working for you, you're able to leverage people for income, and here's where you're able to leverage your investments, leverage your money for income as well. We're going to talk about both of those here today. Almost every training that I put on investment related is over on that side of the quadrant. Pokemon. Who here knows what Pokemon is? So if you want to know the age of the kids of the presenter, just talk about the theme here. So the reason I added Pokemon is because I have a 11-year-old son, a 7-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old son as well. And that's what they care about. So I see this when I come home all the time, and I start to notice some similarities in what we're trying to teach here. So, anybody play Pokemon Go? No? Of course you did, Ruchi. Ruchi, what's the evolution of Pokemon?
Well, the more you feed them and the more you train them, the bigger they get, and then they can do.
So they evolve, they become stronger, right? They become different people, right? So Pikachu becomes Raichu, one of the strongest Pokemon characters out there, apparently. Charmander, he's my youngest son's favorite. After 25 candies, he becomes Charmeleon, then becomes Charizard. There's going to be a test on this, so you guys should write this down. My oldest, Squirtle, turns into Wardle, turns into Blastoise. I don't know what that means, but what I do know is they go through this step, right? They all start here, and then they're able to get to this one. And the point of the game is you have a Pokemon that you're collecting, and you meet other people, and you're going to battle, and it's based on the strengths of the Pokemon that the other person has. And what I do know is if you have a Charmander and you're challenging a Blastoise, you'll lose. That's all I know. So you got to know your skill set when you're out there in the market as well. We're going to talk about that. Knowing who you're partnered with is going to be key, and knowing where you are on the evolution chain. So there is an evolution of the real estate investor. There are two main paths. There's probably multiple paths, but these are the two paths that I see the most. And if you guys signed in and gave your email and checked yes, I will email these slides to you after. You're worried about taking notes, we'll have these that we can send out to you. But this first path on the top, this is the B path. Build an investment business. You want to build a business with the B quadrant. You're going to be investing your time and you're going to be leveraging other people to build a business to make money. The bottom path is the I path. Investment of your money. We all have to invest something, right? You invest your time or your money. Those are your two key resources to start out with. So the very first path on the build the business side for an investor typically is a wholesaler. Wholesaling. Who's heard of wholesaling before? I've taught a class just on wholesaling. Who wants to tell me in simple terms what is wholesaling when it comes to real estate investing? Ben.
You go out and you talk to Omni, he wants to sell his house, put it under contract, and then we'll come in here to all you wonderful people and say, hey, I've got a house under contract, who wants it? That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I make the spread. Omni may agree to sell a house to me for, say, $200,000, it may be worth $240,000, $250,000. He wants to sell for a myriad of reasons. So he's selling it to me for $200,000, I make a main offer for $210,000, $215,000, I make that $10,000 or $15,000 difference. None of my own money's at risk. It's a beautiful thing if you can put together.
So, pop quiz. If you're not a licensed agent, can you make a commission on a sale? No, you cannot. You absolutely cannot. You cannot make a commission, right? So wholesaling is not making a commission on a sale. You are actually going out, you're a buyer. You're getting a buyer under contract. However, that contract allows you to assign it to someone else or bring in a partner. And you're saying, I'm going to assign it to someone else during this 10-day window or some sort. You call me up, I'll buy it from you. You call one of the other investors up, I'll buy it from you. And the reason that typically works is the best way to sell your home, we know this. Hire an agent, hire a great agent, put it on the market, fix it up, prep it, and you're going to get the highest price possible. As a real estate agent, that's what I believe, that's what I think you should do. There are some scenarios where a homeowner can't do that, right? Some of those scenarios are personal, some of those are financial. If they've had their head in the sand for a while and they've had some delinquency notices and they're 7 days away from foreclosure, what's their likelihood of putting it on the market, hiring an agent, putting it on market, finding a buyer, and going to settlement in time? Not very likely, right? Those are the most common scenarios where they need to get an investor that can pay cash and they can buy it right away. So the investor's helping them out, avoiding foreclosure, hopefully putting money in their pocket, and it's a good deal for the investor as well. And those usually, the ones that have cash, are able to do that. So that's the wholesaling side. If you have a good agent, if you are a good agent, then you can skip this process because your good agent can be finding you deals. But finding the deals is the most important part. It's the hardest part. There's a whole separate training just on that. But next step in the evolution process on this chain is JV, joint ventures. Who here's JV'd on an investment deal before? JV, right? So this is not me by myself. I'm going to partner with somebody. I'm going to become a JV, and there's so many different forms of what a JV looks like. But the most typical question I get is, how do you break down a JV? And so I just say it's a 25-25-50 breakdown. And what that is an approximate value for the 3 key steps in the investment process. What are the 3 key players or 3 key steps in the investment process? Any guesses?
Well, you gotta locate the deal,
Find the deal. Very important. Without finding the deal, you can't do a deal, right?
right?
What's the next step?
Find the money.
You gotta find the money, you gotta pay for it, you gotta fund it, right? Next step. What's the last step? You gotta figure it out. You gotta, whatever the project is, right? Whether, if it's flipping, you gotta do all that. You gotta manage that, you gotta get that, make it look nice, you gotta sell it. If it's renting that we're gonna talk about today, fixing it up, putting the renter in there. So finding the deal approximately, this will vary by scenario, is approximately worth 25%. Approximately. On a JV. Funding the deal, approximately worth 25% on a JV, not on a lending scenario. And managing the deal, getting the deal to closing, is about 50%. That's just general numbers so that you know. Next step is you become a developer. You're managing the deal because you've watched, hopefully, the developer do it a few times and you're feeling comfortable with the process, and you are the one that are asking people to bring deals to you. Maybe you're funding it, and maybe you're the developer. You get 75% of the deal. Someone brings you the deal and it's a JV. So what's the difference between a developer doing a 25% JV and a developer buying a deal from a wholesaler?
Well, the potential spread. Developer could make 25, 30, 40%, and the wholesaler might make 5%.
Sure. So it's risk, right? So a wholesaler can choose to say, I'm just going to sell it to you right up front and assign my rights to this contract that I've secured for, let's say, $5,000. And then they're out. They get that no matter what. Now, if there's a $100,000 profit on that deal and they stayed in for a JV, they would have made how much?
25.
Maybe $25,000. If there's no profit on that deal, how much would they have made? Zero. There's a loss on that deal. They share that loss as well. So it's risk that they're managing versus a guaranteed return. That's up front, something to think about. So the developer side, and then on the last side, most developers get tired of developing because it's a job. It's a job. And then you're figuring out, how do I make my money work for me? And you're turning into private money lending, PML, or you're buying cash flow properties, which we'll talk about today. All right, that's the first line of evolution. This is, I've got time, I want to build a business. This is what my business path looks like. There's obviously a few other pieces that you can throw in here, but that's some simplified terms. The next process is, we come down here, I have no time. I'm working full time, zero time whatsoever, but I want to make my money work faster for me. I'm coming up 5 years away from retirement, and I'm not comfortable with what I'm seeing in the market right now. I need to make my money work more for me. So this is a completely different path. You don't have time to go wholesale. You don't have time to develop. This is where you can become a private money lender. You partner with a smart, capable investor or investor group, make your money work for you, get a certain type of return. We'll talk about what that looks like today. From there, you can JV and decide which side of the deal, how many, what 1, 2, or 3 pieces are you going to be doing. But partnering with somebody gets you a little bit more experience. Maybe after 2, 3 deals, at that point, you still have no time, so you can't be a developer. Developer takes time. If you have no time, don't be a developer. Cash flow. You're going to jump right into cash flow, and you're going to build your rental portfolio for passive income. Who here has a rental? Do you manage it yourself? That means you have a job, not an investment. That's all it means. You have a job. Congratulations, you're a property manager. Once you get to the point where you don't manage it yourself, now it's income, but jobs give you income. But it takes your time, it takes your stress, it takes all those things. So this, what I'm talking about, is not a job. It's setting up so that you have a system in place. You just have passive income. You collect checks, you make decisions, but you're not fixing toilets. You're not collecting rent. You're not doing any of that. You hire somebody to do that. And then the last step on this side is commercial multifamily. How do you supercharge what you're doing, your cash flow? Do you upsize? Do you trade in and get into multifamily and commercial? We're not going to get into that today. It's very exciting. We have a completely different training path and course that we'll be putting on later on this year. Any questions on this evolution path? Any questions? All right, does that make sense? So what I want you to, and we'll come back to this towards the end, I want you to think, where are you? If you're an agent and you have clients, where are they? Because as agents, we often get clients saying, I'm interested in investing. But now you know, where are you going to be investing? What have they done up until now? And you can figure out, how do you help them get to the next step? Because every step you take, you clearly make more money. So can you take your investor from here to here? Can you take it from here to here and then to here? And that's how we help our clients. If you're an investor yourself, that's figuring out how do we get to here or how do we get to here. So we'll come back to that. All right. So the process, trust the process. It's a very, very simple process. We call it the 4 F's. Find, fund, fix, flip, and then or rent, depending on what you're talking about. So last class or 2 classes ago, we talked about flipping. Today, we're going to talk more about the renting side. All right, basic MCO math. For those who were in my last class, what does MCO stand for? Max cash offer. What if you're not going to pay cash? Doesn't matter. You still figure out what the max cash offer is. No matter what. We always start with there, and then we work our way backwards. So I'm going to give you the basic MCO flipping math. Step number 1, determine the accurate ARV, which is after repair value. How do you figure out an accurate ARV?
Look at the sold values of comparable properties that you're going to fix up.
Close. Call your agent.
Oh,
Your agent will figure it out for you. Don't trust yourself. Here, what you don't do, don't look on Zillow. Don't go to Redfin. I guarantee you it's wrong. It's like 20% off in some cases. And I've met too many investors that lost money because they were relying on Zillow and Redfin. The reality is, those are automated, and I know it simplifies the process. It gives us something to start, but you have to get down and drill down, and sometimes it takes the expert's eye. I mean, for example, in this area, I invest in a lot of different. One place I won't invest in is Baltimore. Not because there's anything wrong with Baltimore. I know for a fact that this side of the street is completely different than this side of the street. I just don't know which side of the street to invest on yet. So I need someone from Baltimore. Anybody? No? Okay, to guide me through that process, because I don't know that, and I don't want to walk the streets of Baltimore to figure it out. So you need that expert in every single area. So setting up your team is going to be very important. Your ARV is definitely key. Close comps, similar square footage, similar age. I usually do plus or minus 10 years. You can't always do it. These are rules of thumb, though. Plus or minus 10 years. Similar neighborhood, similar features, similar amenities. Step number 2, determine renovation costs. How do you determine renovation costs for a flip? What's the first step?
You have to know what its needs are first.
Gotta know what its needs are?
You get a home inspection, right?
Okay.
Find out the structural.
Okay. Too late, it's sold.
Yeah.
Someone else bought it. It's gone. It's gone. Like in the time we just spent right there, it's gone. It's too late. which is most investors say, I need that, I need to get it, I need to inspect it, I need to do this, I need to do this. Yes,
And then when you go do it,
it's gone. It's gone. They need to sell it in 4 days because they're gonna be foreclosed on. They're looking for a cash offer to close tomorrow. Right? That's the type of timeline sometimes you're dealing with for the best deals out there. How many amazing deals are there on the market right now? You're a buyer trying to buy in this market. How many amazing deals are there? Zero. Zero. There's zero. I guarantee you there's zero amazing deals. If you're a seller, it's great. Get whatever you want. We just put $1 million property on in Alexandria. Got like 4 or 5 offers like within minutes. Way over asking price. It's just crazy. It's a seller's market. That means it's a tough market to be a buyer. It's a really tough market to be an investor buyer. So most of our deals are not on the market. Lisa.
I think if you're dealing with those fast sales, like you're saying, where they need to be sold yesterday, you wanna allot at least 20%. Just whatever the price is, figure out 20 to 30% on the side for renovation, just to give yourself.
Good rule of thumb. I don't know if it's true, but it's good. We'll go over the exact math here in a bit to help you guys come up quick with it. So we'll move on. So step number 3, we need to determine the max cash offer. So we will come back to this. I have a formula for this. Max cash offer. All right. So here's what we're trying to get to. I want to know how much I can offer if I'm paying cash. Doesn't matter if I'm paying cash. Yes.
If you're not wholesaling, it's 70% of ARV. If
Close.
you're gonna wholesale, about 65.
Very, very close. It's a good rule of thumb. Very good rule of thumb. And it'll vary by area,
Vary
vary
by
by
area.
price point. But this is
Hard
what
to
we're
do
trying
that.
to do. So does it matter what the listing price is? No, because most of the properties are not listed. They're not listed. So you don't even know where to start. However, you'll know exactly where to start based on this formula that I give you here. So we're starting out, you need to know the ARV, call your agent. That's how you get the ARV. Minus acquisition costs. Minus holding costs. We'll go over this in a bit. Minus repair costs. Minus your renovation costs, which we need to figure out in step 2. Minus your profit. Do you want profit when you're an investor? You don't know how many deals I've reviewed for junior investors where they had everything except the profit they want to make. Now, this is a great deal. To break even, they're going to spend 6 months, $700,000 out of pocket, and they're factoring in breaking even because the numbers added up for them. They missed that line. So how much profit? It depends. It depends on the risk. So we're going to use some generic numbers here today, like 10% or 15%. It will vary based on price point. It will vary based on the risk factors of that deal. So this is the simple formula. If you remember this formula, it will help you analyze deals. Yes,
What is ARV meaning?
after repair value.
After repair.
After repair value means it's fixed up. What's the value of that to sell? What's the value of that to refinance? What's the value of that to rent? But it's after it's fixed up. Because current value is based on its current condition. I know I'm going to do this. What would that be? What would it appraise for? What could I sell it for? Very important. All right. Anybody hear this before? The 130-10-1 rule. I just made it up. So, it's investing. It's in being a real estate agent. It's in so many things out there. So 100 is, that's where you're starting point. It's a funnel, right? Working your way down. So for one deal, I need to find 10 properties that qualify based on my criteria, based on the numbers to make an offer on. And maybe even make an offer on 10 properties. And I'll probably close on one deal. To find 10 properties that meet my criteria, I need to sift to and find 30 properties that meet my general area and general criteria, which typically means I need to get about 100 leads. If you're a wholesaler, that's pretty similar. If you're a developer, that's pretty similar, which means if you have trouble pulling triggers and making decisions and you're looking for that perfect one property, I hate to tell you this, doesn't matter, you're not going to get it. Doesn't matter. Like, you have to be in the mode of making more offers because it's typically 1 in 10 that actually gets accepted and through your due diligence period to closing. We've had several in this office already of our agents that are investing that have been offered, accepted, and they had to back out because they found something, right? Because there's checks and balances that we'll talk about. So that's it. So you're not looking for the one, you're looking for a system in place to filter 100 properties down to 30, down to 10. That's a lot of work. So we're going to try to come up with rules of thumb to help you do that. But once again, We're going to use our rules of thumb to get 100 properties down to 30. We're going to calculate 30. We're going to make offers and investigate on 10. And we're going to actually make money on 1. Does that math make sense? So we got to figure out how do we get to there as easy as possible. All right. Step number 1, 75% of ARV. 75% of ARV is rule of thumb number 1. This will vary by price point. This will vary by area. But it's a really good rule of thumb to take 100 properties and figure out which 30 do I want to actually calculate. Because if you spend time calculating all 100, that's your full-time job. Purchase price plus renovation cannot exceed 75% of ARV. Got that? Purchase price plus renovation. So as an example, if the ARV, after it's fixed up, is $100,000, you guys are going to find out. I like simple math. I'm going to use $100,000 a lot. $100,000. The renovated is estimated to be $25,000. Your purchase price cannot exceed $50,000. Got that? Because $50,000 plus $25,000 is what percent of ARV? 75%. Simple math. Everyone, we're good? All right. We can't go beyond this if we're stuck here. So it's about as simple as it gets. All right. Next rule of thumb. Okay. All right. There we go. That's exactly what that means. Next rule of thumb, the 1% cash flow rule. I've talked about this. If you've been to my Realtor Retirement Program training, I talked about this in depth. We're going to just go breach this a little bit here today. The 1% cash flow rule. The monthly rent should be at least 1% of the purchase price or rent ready price. For example, if the purchase price is $100,000, then the rent would need to be at least $1,000 a month. What's the average sales price here in Loudoun County?
500,
Give or take, 500,000 or so. Is the average rent $5,000?
No.
So is Loudoun County a good cash flow area?
No.
No? How about Arlington? What's the average sales price there? 800,000? Can you get $8,000 for rent there? No. Because that gets you like a fixer-upper, right? So it's different, right? You got to understand what type of investment are you doing. Are you looking for cash flow or are you looking for equity? Completely different properties. Some people buy for equity and are hoping for cash flow. Some people buy for cash flow and are wondering why they're not getting equity. They're completely different markets, completely different types of properties. Sometimes you get lucky and you get both. You absolutely can get lucky because what happens with the market, equity-wise? We're in a market like this, right? What's going to happen eventually? It'll do this, right? Yeah. Definitely. Then it'll do this and this. And depending on where we are and when you need to sell will depend on your equity. But it's luck. Cash flow is consistent because rent does this, and when does it do this? Never. It does this. It does this. It does this. Right? So cash flow, buying for cash flow is really the main key if you're looking at long term here. So those are 2 key rules of thumbs that we're going to use here today. I've used this property example probably 100 times now. Beauty, isn't it a beauty? In Arlington, how much would that be? It's like $1 million at least, right there. $1 million. It's not in Arlington, I'm going to tell you that. It's not in Arlington. Property description. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, no HOA, needs TLC, needed TLC. So the ARV is $120,000. After fixed up, $120,000. Estimate renovation was $30,000 when I bought this. So let me ask you, ARV rental comps for this property after it was fixed up was right around $1,200. So based on this number right here, what's the max offer I could make on this property for a flip? If I was to flip this property, what's that max offer? What's that rule of thumb we talked about? We're not going to get on to everyone gets it. Dude, pull out your calculators. 75% rule, right? So we have all the numbers we need. We know the ARV.
60.
We know the renovation costs.
60,000.
Okay, so 60,000 plus 30,000 is 75% of ARV. Let's check that. Yes, you're correct. So the max cash offer I can make on this is $60,000 for it to meet my criteria in that rule of thumb. Okay? What's the max offer if I was going to use this as a cash flow? I have all the numbers I need, right?
90.
What's the rule I use? The 1% rule.
No, because it has to be rented still.
The rent ready price is 120, right? So I could buy this at 90 if I'm cash flowing, and it'll meet my 1% rule. Completely different. You guys got that? Completely different based on what your goals are. If I bought this at 90, is this a good investment as a flip?
No.
I'm gonna break even. That's it. I'm gonna maybe lose money on that. It just doesn't make sense. But as a cash flow, it makes sense. All right. So, yes. You pass out to that side over there. You pass out to one of those. All right. All right. I got a rehab checklist. And we're going to pass it around here. I got some disclaimers I got to read before we go on because I'm not giving investment advice or I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just telling a story here. I've got lots of stories to tell, personal experiences. I want to share those stories. I am by no means advising you on investment purposes. And more so, when you see this handout, I'm just telling you a story of what I use to simplify my process, calculate some checks and balances. Might not have enough. I'm sorry. If you're in the back, too bad. Sit up front next time. All right. We got some in the back? We're good? Anybody still missing? Anybody missing? All right, good. All right, guys. Important. Let me read these disclaimers real quick. This checklist is for example purposes only. Do not rely on these numbers as they will vary. Price, point, home, type, contractor, and finishes chosen. They will make it vary. These are just for examples. It will change. As a new investor, you should always get a home inspection and multiple contractor quotes during your due diligence period. Due diligence period. Not prior to offer, due diligence period. Okay? Very important. Remember the 130-10 formula that we talked about, analyze as many deals as we can. So this is the formula that I use to analyze, 10, 20 deals a week, typically. I'm always analyzing deals. And we'll go over what it looks like here. So, not yet. So the top line, the roof square footage. We're going to go through this quickly. We're going to do a quick exercise together here. Roof square footage. This is approximately under $500,000 price point because it will change in terms of material cost and labor above that price point. There's a completely different calculator. So this is for example purposes only. 1.5 times the square feet. So if there's 1,000 square feet in that home, what is that number there?
1,500.
1,500. Divided by 100, what is that?
15.
15 times 250, which is the price per square. What is square? Any roofers in the room? What's a square? 100 square feet. So that's roofer terminology of how they price most jobs. Isn't that important to know if you're going to ask a roofer to do a deal? If you could speak the terminology you think it might benefit you? How many squares is my roof? Right? So that's a general cost in this price point. And then you do the math, and it'll tell you approximately how much it'll cost you to renovate that roof.
I'm sorry, can you do that line again?
Sure. So your square footage, 1.5 because there's a pitch, typically. There's a pitch, 1.5. If it is a steep pitch, what do you think happens with that number?
2.
It goes up. So it's just a rule of thumb, right? So 1.5 for a common pitch times your square footage. We're going to do an example, so don't worry about writing anything down. We're going to do an example as a group right after this. So let's say it's 1,000 square feet. We turn into 1,500 square feet there, divided by 100 equals that 15 times 250. And that's your approximate cost. When you get that number, you're going to say there's no way a roofer is going to replace a roof for that number. There's no way a roofer will replace a roof for that number. Not for you, he won't. Not for a retail customer, they won't. But if you're a legitimate investor, and you bring him multiple properties and multiple deals and they're vacant, is it easier for a contractor to work on a vacant home or an occupied home? Vacant home, right? So it's an easier process. You make it easier, then typically you can get better pricing. So all of that is based on that factor right now. You will never get this pricing. It's probably double or triple for a retail customer. All right, landscaping I factor in for a normal home, about $1,200 for the outside exterior, every single property. Exterior siding and paint, you take the square footage times $2, so we have 1,000 square feet. How much is that? $2,000. I'm going to set aside $2,000. Kitchen, I'm going to replace every single kitchen on every single home that I buy. That's just what I do. Under this $500,000 price point, right around $10,000 every single time.
Are these numbers inclusive of material,
Yes,
labor, and
materials and labor. Materials and labor. Bathrooms, about $4,000 for every bathroom you do. If you have a major master bathroom, it's probably double that, but for a typical bathroom, $4,000. Windows, to replace a window, about $400. Interior doors, don't save those doors. So many people say, how much money can I save by not replacing those doors? Once you paint, change the flooring, change the kitchen, and you save those doors, what happens? You're going to realize those are the ugliest doors I've ever seen. They were probably the nicest thing of the home when you bought it. They're ugly. So right around $250 to replace those doors. Exterior door, I usually spend about $650 on price points in this area. Garage door, $900. Plumbing, water heater, $850. Electrical panel, $3,000 to $4,000 to rewire that panel. Every home that I do, I replace all the electrical fixtures, the outlets, the sockets, just to make it look new. It's about $2,000. Does that vary based on size? Yes, but not to the point where it'll be a deal breaker for me. So that's just a flat number that I use. HVAC, that will vary. Somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 for HVAC. Interior paint and prep, square footage times $2. You're 1,000 square feet. How much is that? $2,000. Flooring, square footage times $4. $4,000. Now that's an average across, because in this price point you're doing probably laminate in the main area, you're doing carpet in the bedrooms and tile in the bathrooms. So how much is tile? Is that $4 a square foot? No way. It's 10 plus. How much is carpet? It can be less than $4 a square foot, right? So it's the average across the home there. Carpentry trim, about $1 a square foot. Demolition and dump. So I typically plan on one dumpster per 1,000 square feet if it's not a hoarder house. So if it's 2,000 square feet, I need at least 2 dumpsters. If I'm removing walls, I add another dumpster on top of that. But that's to demolition and for the dumpster fees as well. To remove a wall, roughly $1,000 there. If it's a hoarder house, meaning you bought everything, which happens quite a bit, you probably got to double your dumpsters, and you know that's another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 that you're adding to your expense to do that. So that's the quick breakdown. We're going to do a quick exercise. So I want you guys to break into groups just in your row, 2 or 3, just in your row, or you can cross aisles here. We're going to spend just a few minutes on this because I just need the time to get another glass of wine. So I'm going to make you guys work while I do that. All right, single family home, no HOA, $500,000 ARV, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2,000 square foot, there's no garage, year built 1970, everything is original. Everything is original in this home. $5,000 acquisition cost to the wholesaler, $5,000 holding cost, $35,000 resale cost, $75,000 desired profit. So we have the information. I want you to get with your partner, at least 1, 2, 3 other people, and come up with what the numbers are. All right, this is a case study. You need math, you need a calculator. You can't do this by yourself, or I'm not going to let you get to the rest of the class. Sit down, and then we'll go. 5 minutes, 5 minutes. There's a prize for the winner that gets it right. Make some more copies.
Well, it used,
Anybody need?
yeah, it used to be.
Anybody need more sheets?
Renovation cost, they said 70%. We've got 75%. What is it? Renovation cost is 35. No, that's the renovation. Oh, he doesn't have it? Oh, he wants to go backwards on dropping. Oh, okay. So if we want to make the profit, okay, this is working it differently. 75 grand, resale cost takes us up to 110, 115, 120, 380. So we had it at 380. Yeah, but yeah, we got another repair. So why did you get it for that? So let's assume
Everything's original.
that this is 2,000 square foot. We went through all of this.
If there's no photos on this property, you gotta buy it in the next 1 hour.
So we have a proof that 3,003. Alright, but we need to say
I'm trying to get it done.
Alright guys, I don't care where you are, write down an offer price. No matter where you are, write down your offer price on your paper, circle it. 15 seconds, write down your offer price. All right, pencils down. Pencils down. If you're not done with your calculations, write down an offer price. Just write it down. You want this property, so you got to put in an offer. Write it down. All right, let's start out. Who has an offer price of $250 or less? Okay. Who has an offer price of $300 or more? All right, $250 or. Everyone, raise your hand. Raise your hand. All right. If you less than 300, lower your hand. Less than 300, lower your hand. All right. If you 300 or less, keep your hands up. No more wine for Ramsey. 305.
I mean, 300 or more.
305 or more, keep your hands up. 307 or more, keep your hands up. 310 or more, keep your hands up. 315 or more, keep your hands up. 317 or more, keep your hands up.
What's the right answer on it?
320 or more. 320 or more? Raise your hand. Who's still in play? We got one. How much do you have?
I think it just depends on your renovation.
What's your price? 370. 375. 390. Anyone have an offer price higher than 390? No. All right, congratulations, you bought it. Give Cecilia a round of applause. Now let's see if she makes money. So let's do the numbers, Cecilia. You win. You guys all lose. She wins. But we're going to figure out if she made money, right? 390. Cecilia. All right. All right, guys. We're going to go through this here, right? Everyone else lost. She won until we figure out if she made money or not. Okay? So what's the exercise? The exercise is figure out what's the highest price I can pay. Does that sound crazy? Mm-hmm. I'm always trying to figure out what's the highest price I can pay
And still make money.
and still make the profit I want. If you're trying to figure out what's the lowest price I can pay, you will never ever get a property. I'm going to guarantee you that. All right? What is the highest price I can pay and still make a profit? That's it. So let's figure it out. So Cecilia, tell me about your renovation costs. What's your total renovation cost?
72,000.
72,000. Does that seem on par?
No, I had 89.
You had 89,000? You went for that deluxe
Took out
granite?
walls.
Took out walls?
So there were extra costs.
Did I tell you to take out walls?
No, I wanted to.
All right, well, you lost. Good luck on your next
Floor
one.
plan is really good.
Good luck on your next one. All right, 75. All right, so we're writing in 75,000. The acquisition cost 5,000. What goes into acquisition costs? Home inspection, various inspections, and closing costs, right? That's acquisition cost. Is it 5,000 every time? No. That's just a number. But will your deal fall apart if it's 6,000? It won't fall apart. If it's 4,000, even better, right? Holding costs. What goes into holding costs? So this is depending on, is this a flip or is this a cash flow? If it's a flip, you're factoring in 4 to 6 months. 4 to 6 months for a flip, and you're looking at taxes. What else? Insurance. What else? Utilities. HOA, if there's an HOA, there's no HOA in this. 5,000. That's probably high for this example, but that's 6 months there. Resale costs. What goes into resale costs? Commissions, costs to just get it ready and get it on the market. Closing costs as a seller. What sort of closing costs are at the table for a seller? Taxes, right? There's a few things there. That's just an estimate there. $75,000 desired profit. So I'm having a hard time with the math, but let's do the math here. So we have $500,000 is our starting point because we know that's what we're going to sell it for, right? Minus, let's start from here. Acquisition cost, $5,000. Minus $5,000 holding cost. Minus $35,000 resale cost. Minus $75,000 desired profit. Minus what was the renovation cost? No, the renovation cost.
Sorry,
72,000. So you have 308 is what you should have offered. So what did you not factor in? Profit. Which happens all the time. I'm telling you, that's the number one mistake that I see new investors make. Like, they called me after they bought the home. Mistake. And they say, the numbers aren't adding up. Can you look at this for me? I'm like, I can look at it for you. I'm going to tell you, you paid too much. There's no way to fix that. That's it. You pay for education, right? You just paid $75,000 for that education. It's okay. So, you guys got that, right? Simple math. Do it 1,000 more times and you'll get it. That's it. That's it. That's the answer. 1,000 more times and you'll get it.
Even removing my walls and adding extra windows, that was at $298.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on. So, I know it's still fuzzy. I'm going to tell you, it sounded like I was joking. No, do it 1,000 more times. That's how you get it. You run the numbers on every property you see. How many photos did we look at?
Zero.
I think you still start.
Does it matter? No. Like, we knew the numbers, we knew the information, and when you make the offer, what do you still do? There's a due diligence period. You give yourself the due diligence period to then inspect, then verify the numbers. But these numbers are very, very close to at least this area in this price point. It's not close if you're doing over $500,000. Yes, Ruchi.
What's acquisition cost again? Title?
Acquisition is home inspection or inspections and closing costs as a buyer. So, who had a purchase price of 308?
Question over there.
Norhe.
How do you figure out what your desired profit is? Just because your desired profit can just be so different.
How much money do you want to make on that deal?
I put 75 and had a max offer at 320.
Okay. So this will vary by investor. I've seen investors saying they wanted a certain percentage. I've seen investors saying, I just need $10,000 every deal, I'm happy. I've seen investors saying, I need $500,000 a deal. Right? So it will vary, but what you should think about is your risk premium. How much money are you factoring in, and what is the risk? So let's say this was a $500,000 ARV. We talked about $72,000 renovation, roughly. What if this was a $10,000 renovation? How risky is that? Not much, right? Do I still need a $75,000 profit on a $10,000 renovation? No, it's less risk. So your risk premium will factor in how much profit you are comfortable making. There's no answer. It's just factors that you need to think about, right? Everyone good with this? All right.
And the big renovation takes longer, so you're tied up.
Big renovation takes longer?
So
Correct.
You wanna make more, that's just taking.
All right, this is not on the slide. So $5,000 renovation.
It's 15%,
How long should that take?
2 months,
It's a rule of thumb. 75 days.
2.5 days for every job.
Do that again?
It's hard to spend more than $1,000 a day unless you make a big mistake. That's not factoring permitting issues. If there's permitting issues, things get
Which is
on
a big
hold.
mistake.
Yeah, rules of thumb. That's all it is, right? Rules of thumb. Because what you can't do is say, let me go analyze this. Let me call my attorney. Let me call my... You need to do the spreadsheet, make the offer, or you're not even in the game, right? Everyone in this room wasn't in the game except one person. And that's what it'll be like. Because there's not a lot of these deals out there that come up. Let's say you see 5 of these a year. You're not going to get any of them if you overanalyze it. You got to get in the game, run the numbers, make sure you're comfortable running the numbers so that you can even play. All right, return on investment. We're going to take a pivot here. When does a great cash flow property become an underperforming investment? Great cash flow, you've owned it. It's a rental. You're making money. You're happy. When does it become an underperforming investment?
You're making less profit, so you can make it larger.
Hmm?
Investment.
You want to dispose of it? Maybe.
But you can make more money in the market otherwise.
Okay, we're talking about opportunity cost, right?
Opportunity cost is a big.
When your ROE drops below acceptable levels, what's ROI? What's ROE?
Return on equity.
Return on equity. What does that even mean? We're going to talk about that a lot today. And like some of you are going to like bleed from the eyes if you don't like math, but we are going to talk about it. Cash flow is what we're talking about. So here are some examples. Cash flow, $50,000 equity, single family purchase. $200,000 purchase. You put 25% down. I'm doing the math for you on this one. Don't worry. $50,000. So that means you have how much equity? $50,000. Everyone there so far? We're good? All right. All right, moving on. 75% loan, all still adding up, right? So the rule of thumb, 1% rule. We need to find a property that rents for $2,000. Is this in Ashburn? No. All right, it's not in Ashburn. $2,000. Your PITI on that loan is $1,012. Trust me, I've asked Sam, he's the best there is. It's $1,012. Your PM, VR, and RC, what does that mean? Wrong class for that, sorry. There's a different class, whole different class on property management, but that's property management, vacancy rate, and repair costs. I'll tell you how we get that, but those are just rules of thumb that I use. So PM, VR, RC, those are the numbers there, $320. So we have a $668 a month positive cash flow in this example, okay? Which means every single year we have just over $8,000 positive cash flow, which is a 16% cash on cash ROI. What are you getting in your 401k right now? 16%, everyone? Maybe. Maybe not. Who would do that deal? Who would, if you got to guarantee 16%, who would do that deal? Right? Every day. Every deal. This is the bare minimum deal we look for. This is the bare minimum. All right. Ooh. $20 donation to JDRF right there. Look at that. All right, so here's a chart. I'm collecting money all day. Look at that. 16% ROI on this $50,000, right? So you put in $50,000, doesn't matter what the investment is, right? Put in $50,000, you're getting 16% ROI. That's not bad. So now we're going to look at what is the ROE, return on equity, over this time period. So the purchase date, you have $50,000 of equity. Year one, the end of year one, you have $62,500 of equity on the assumption of 5% increase. Does that happen everywhere, every single time? No. We're talking about rules of thumb and average. Your property may appreciate higher or lower, but for this example, we're going to use 5%. So, all right, year one, how do we get to that $12,500 increase? So we talked about increase in value, equity, and what? And debt pay down, right? Two different things. Debt pay down, increase in value. Part of your payment every month goes to debt, right? You guys, good. All right. All right. Year two, you have $75,000 and $75,500 of equity in your property. You're now down to 10% ROE, return on equity. It's the exact same rent that you're getting. Year three, $89,000. Year four, $103,000. Year five, $119,000. So this is assuming 5 straight years of 5% increase. Has that happened before? Yes. Is that a guarantee? No. But if you're paying your mortgage for 5 years and there's a 5%, that's where you are, right there. So now you're sitting on $119,000 worth of equity. You're getting the exact same return on the rent. So now we're down to 6.5% ROE. Is that a great return?
Well, actually, why are we not counting in increase in rent?
We'll talk about that in a bit. Great question. Depends on if you're managing it yourself or if you have a property manager. That'll vary. So, you can see how there's a difference, correct? Mm-hmm. So what is this money called here? What is $119,000? Is that in your bank right now?
No.
What is that? It's like dumb money. It's dumb money. That's what it is. It's the stupidest money you could ever own unless you do something with it. Because what will happen with that money eventually if you just rely on a market? It'll go up, it'll go down, it'll go up, it'll go down, right? And depending on when you want to cash out, depends on the value of that money. It's dumb money because it's not making a decision. So that's what that is. So we're going to talk about this as an accidental investor. What's an accidental investor? Most homeowners become accidental investors if they decide not to sell their home. I paid down a lot, right? I'm going to keep it as a rental. Does that sound smart? Keep it as a rental. Who's done that? I've done that. I was an accidental investor before. All right, so I bought a home, lived in it for a while. I moved. But you know what? I'm just going to keep that as a rental. I'm breaking even, maybe making a little bit of money. Did I make that decision to purchase that property based on its cash flow value? No, I did not. I can guarantee you, I don't own a single rental that I would live in, right? It's a different type of property. It's a different type of neighborhood. It's a different type of area that cash flows better. So, here's an example. $400,000 purchase, 20% down. So you put down $80,000 on this example, 80% loan, move out, and rent this property after 5 years. You live in the property for 5 years, you move out, you rent it out. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Many people do that. So now this property, $2,300 rent. The PITI is just over $2,000. Don't worry about these numbers. That's property management, vacancy rate, repair costs, reserves. We are at a negative $157 a month. You're saying, wait, this doesn't meet the 1% rule, right? 400,000 versus 2,300. You're right, it doesn't meet the 1% rule. That was the average sales price in the area 5 years ago. That was the average rental 5 years ago. That's all it is. It's a different rule, and it's not cash flow. So what that means is you're at a negative cash flow of 2% every single year. Who'll do that investment? Anybody? Takers?
If I need a tax break, I will.
Okay. All right, so not a great deal. So here's a number one kind of comeback we get from homeowners, because this is many scenarios out there. They say, well, okay, I'm not gonna hire a property manager. It's okay. I'm not gonna worry about vacancy rate because I will always keep it occupied. Okay, maybe you do. Maybe you get lucky for 10 years and your tenant lives in it. I have a property tenant's been in there for 19 years. I'm happy. I didn't have to turn over, right? Repair costs. I don't plan to fix anything ever. Just renovated it. Maybe, okay. It's a gamble, but maybe. So let's run those hypotheticals. So let's say we take out this. Now we're just factoring in rent versus what our down payment is. We're making $200 a month, just roughly. It's a risk, but it can happen. So you're making just over $2,500 a year, positive cash flow. And we hear lots of clients, lots of agents, everyone coming to us say, okay, I'm going to keep it because I'm positive. I'm barely positive, but the reality is it's positive because you took a job as a property manager. You have a job and you're making a little bit of money. So you're making 3% cash on cash ROI. So I'm going to show you what that looks like on the next slide. 3% cash on cash ROI, then factoring in your ROE, return on equity, you're starting out at 1% and you're going down to 0.5 or 0.4% after 5 years or so. Equity in that scenario, we're assuming 5% appreciation every single year. Equity is beautiful if it's in your favor. So we are at $215,000 of equity at that point. Year 1 of renting, we're at $247,000 of equity. Year 3, we're at $280,000 of equity. Year 3, we're at $315,000, $353,000, $391,000. Does that make sense so far? I've seen this 1,000 times. This happened 1,000 times. So we're saying, okay, why don't we just do this forever? The reality is, it's a gamble. It may work, it may not, but it's not up to you, right? That's dumb money sitting there unless you figure out how to turn it into smart money. So you're gaining equity, but you don't own that equity yet until you're utilizing it. It's not yours until you cash in, until you sell it or you leverage it. It's not yours, right? So it does not belong to you at all. That's what you need to understand. Until you use it, it doesn't belong to you. So, because the market will take it away in a second. So your rent's staying the same. Someone asked, why aren't we increasing rent every single year? Who has a rental that has increased rent every single year? Increased rent every single year. So here's what typically happens when you increase rent every single year. Tenants leave. Okay? So what happens when tenants leave? You have to rent it. You have vacant property. You have cost to re-rent. You're spending
Cost to fix up.
cost to fix up. It's called the turn cost. I'm going to guarantee you it's going to cost more than the increase that you did. It is much more efficient to keep your tenant in there at the same price for a few years than turn them every single year. Okay. But if you raise the rent and then move, they're still going up, and now you don't have a tenant, and now you got to pay $2,000, $3,000 to re-rent it, $2,000 to clean it up. So now you spent $5,000 in that year to cover an increase of taxes of how much? Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, it's tempting. If you have a really good property management company, they are much better than we are at this, and they can do this gradually, they can do this tactfully, and you have a better chance at using the property management company to raise your rent without losing your tenants. However, you need a good property management company to do that. So, we're sitting on dumb money. We don't know when that's going to go away. How do we figure out how to leverage that? So we're going to talk about that today. That gets us into our BRRRR method. And we are out of time. I'm sorry. We're done. Never mind. We're done. No? Okay. 30 more minutes. We're going till 8. And we'll run through the rest here. So who's heard of the BRRRR method? BRRRR. It's cold out. It's cold out. So BRRRR means, all right, what if every time you flip the property, you can have a guaranteed buyer at the price you want prior to even starting the deal? If you can have a guaranteed buyer every single time you flip it, would that give you confidence? Like paying the price you want. Would you do that deal every time? Yes. All right, this is how you do it. BRRRR, maximize the velocity of your money. BRRRR provides potential for infinite ROI. Infinite ROI. BRRRR stands for B for buy, R for rehab, R for rent, R for refinance. Pull your money back out. And then R for repeat. So we're going to talk about that. How do you put your money in, get it back out, and still own a property, and you have no money left in the deal? That's called an infinite ROI. Right? I'm going to lend my money for a few months, get it back. Still own a property, have positive cash flow. You are your own buyer to that flip. So you guarantee you're going to buy that property because you're trustworthy, right? You're going to guarantee you buy that property from yourself. All right, so here's the keys. We're talking about rules of thumb. 75% of ARV rule. Price plus rental cannot exceed 75%. We need to follow this rule. Rehab, rental value add plus the upgrade hacks. We're going to look for properties that we can add square footage. We can add bedrooms. If there's a large 2-bedroom somewhere that I can turn into a 3-bedroom, that's gold. Because is the rental price for a 2-bedroom significantly different than a 3-bedroom in most areas? Yes, most areas. Is the rental price for a 3-bedroom significantly different than a 4-bedroom in most areas? Yes, the answer is yes. Is a rental price for a 4-bedroom significantly different than a 5-bedroom? The answer is no. No. So at some point you got to know what makes sense. Going from 2 to 3, 3 to 4 often makes sense. 4 to 5 doesn't make sense in many areas. Adding bathrooms, laminate versus carpet, and a few other things as well. Then we're going to rent worth it to wait for a long-term tenant that's going to stay there long-term through your property management company. Refinance. 75% refinance is the most common. I'm going to tell you, it is hard to refinance an investment property. It's not impossible though. You just gotta know how to put a package together. You know how to keep asking where to go. So you start with Sam, and Sam's our guy. Sam's our guy to figure out, can he help you? If not, he puts you in place to get this done, right? So 75% refinance, which means we need to get it to appraise for a certain amount. Typically, there's a holding period of 6 months. Holding seasoning period of 6 months. We'll get into more details here. And you're gonna repeat. You get your money back, you do this over again. All right, so here's an example, case study, $200,000 ARV. You're going to buy a $100,000 cash purchase. You're going to say, well, what if I don't have $100,000? Well, go find $100,000. Then partner with somebody, JV with somebody. Money is the easiest thing to find. My last class talked about that. There's so much money out there. It is the easiest thing to find. And when I have that class again, I'll let you know. All right. Rehab, it's a $50,000 renovation budget in this scenario. Rent, $2,000 a month. You're going to refinance, 75% loan to value. The value is $200,000. ARV, that's what you did, ran the comps for, you talked to your agent, that's what it would sell for, but you're not trying to sell it. Which means, in this scenario, you refinance it and you get $150,000 back, which is 100% of your initial investment. I gave $150,000 out, I got $150,000 back, and what do I still have? I have a house.
On that refinance money, you guys know you don't pay taxes on refinance money.
Oh,
so if you can pull out more than 150,
that's the advanced class right
you
there.
don't pay
That's bonus.
It's beautiful now.
That's good stuff. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So we're going to talk about how this works out. Numbers breakdown. $2,000 rent means you need to find the right property in the right area that have the right numbers that meet the right rule of thumb, right? The 1% rule of thumb. Minus roughly $1,000 PIT. It was $1,000 and like a few dollars, and it looked really nice at just $1,000. PM, vacancy rate, repair costs, minus all that, $320. So now we're at $680 a month positive cash flow, very similar to our previous example. Very similar, right? Which was 16%. 16%. Who would do that deal? 16%. We'd still do that deal, right? That's not bad. But what if you're able to get all your money back, $0 left in the deal, which means you literally have an infinite ROI. You're getting $8,000 for $0 that you invested in, right? That's what that means, infinite ROI. A couple more examples. What could go wrong in this scenario? So this had a few assumptions in there, right? What were some of the key assumptions? In terms of money, we talked about money in a few different areas.
The amount of the rent, the amount of the rent.
Thank you. So we assumed it was going to rent for $2,000 a month. It could not rent for $2,000 a month. That could happen, right? Okay, that's something that can go wrong. We assumed it would ARV out at $200,000. Maybe the appraiser comes in, they have no clue what they're talking about, but they say it's not worth $200,000. It's not from here. Okay, it could happen. It happens all the time, right? What happens in that scenario?
Then you get all your money back.
You could assume it was going to take $50,000 of renovation, and it might happen to take more, right? That happens. I hate to break it to you, it happens, right? So what do you do in those scenarios? Increase renovation costs, lower ARV appraisal than expected, lower rent than expected, right? That could happen. So I'm going to tell you, is that scary? That blow your deal maybe? So let's look at a few scenarios. Single family purchase, $200,000 ARV. Exact same purchase. Buy it for $100,000 cash. Is that Ashburn? It's not Ashburn. It's not Ashburn. Okay.
Iowa.
You thought it was going to be $50,000 renovation, and your contractor lied. It was $60,000. That's $10,000. That's pretty significant on this deal, right? For $150,000 all in, $10,000 is what percent? I don't know. Maybe I'll trust you on that. That's good. Rent, $2,000 a month. Okay. Refinance, 75%. So now in this scenario, refinance of $200,000. Property means you get back $150,000, which is only 94% of your initial investment. Uh-oh, that's bad. And we run through the numbers. $2,000 rent, all the same numbers over here. $680 a month positive cash flow. You're getting $8,160 positive cash flow. However, you still have money in the deal. How much money do you have in the deal? 6%. You have $10,000, the overage on your renovation. So you have $8,000 into $10,000. You get an 82% ROI. Would you still do that deal? Okay. Is that okay? You get an 82% ROI. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So in that scenario, it could still work. So let's talk about a different scenario. Let's say it only appraises for 190. You knew it should be 200, but they sent in like a Pennsylvania, appraiser. It happens. He doesn't know the area. No matter what you say, he's not going to give you that 200. Who's been in that scenario? Like everyone in real estate has been in that scenario. It happens. So plan on this. All right, buy it for $100,000 cash. You rehab it at $150,000 at $150,000 all in. Still rents for $2,000. Refinance. After your arguments, everything said and done, it's only $190,000 ARV, which means you get $142,000 back, which is 95% of your initial investment. Once again, we're gonna look at those numbers. You got $7,500 still in the deal, which is 109% ROI. If you had to leave $7,500 into that deal because it didn't appraise, you're still getting 109% ROI every year, and every year after that, and every year after that. Who would do that deal? It makes sense, right? Okay, we're gonna do one more. Single family purchase, buys $100,000 cash, rehab $50,000, rent is not $2,000, it's only $1,900. It took longer to renovate for whatever reason. Now you're trying to rent it like Christmas Day, like your options are limited. You take $1,900. All right, you rent it out. Bummer. All right, can refinance it. We pull out 100, pull out 150, which is still 100% of your initial investment. All that means is we get less cash flow, $569 a month, which is $7,152 total positive annual cash flow. How much money do you have in the deal though? Zero. So you still get a, congratulations, infinite ROI. All right? What about a perfect storm? Has there ever been a perfect storm? All three of these? I mean, raise of hand before we do this. If there's a perfect storm, low appraisal, low rent, overage on expenses, who would walk away? Right now, now's your chance. Walk away. Anybody? Okay. $100,000 purchase, $60,000 renovation instead of $50,000, $1,900 instead of $2,000. So now you're refinancing. 75% LTV of 190 means you only get 142,500 back, which is 89% of your initial investment, which means you're leaving 11% in the deal. Ooh, that hurts. 11%. Okay. Repeat. Break down the numbers. Only $1,900 of rent, $596 a month positive cash flow with this $7,152 a year of positive cash flow. You have 11% in the deal, which is $17,000 still in the deal. It's still a 41% ROI. Who would do that deal? All right, so if you find the right property, you run the right numbers, perfect storm happens. Okay, it's not an infinite ROI, it's still a pretty good ROI, right? Every once in a while you get it perfect, and it's an infinite ROI, but this is a way that you can increase the velocity of your money over and over and over again. Does that make sense? So we said if you don't have $100,000 cash, you don't have $500,000 cash, there are many ways to pull cash, bringing in partners. You bring in a partner and your partner gets 20% ROI, they might do that. If the deal makes sense, right? They still might do that. So you can find the partners, and that's where this network makes sense, because some people can lend, some people can do the deals, some people can go find those deals. I'm gonna tell you, these deals are some of the easiest to find. Easiest to find in areas that cash flow well, that need work. I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of those areas. In areas that cash flow well, that need work, and if you're willing to put in that work, and you're willing to do that, you can get that infinite ROI, or at least extremely high ROI. All right, we're gonna take you back here. Once again, we're gonna end on this, and we'll be here for some questions here at the end, but the number one thing you can take away from this or any training I get is figure out where you are, where your clients are, where you wanna be, because you're on this path somewhere. You're on this path, and you gotta figure out, if you think you are here, or you want to jump in here, you gotta realize, I gotta do some work over here. Because if you start here, I'm gonna tell you, you're unprepared, you're more likely to lose money and not see investment all the way through. Or if you wanna start right here and just buy a rental property, you're just buying a job. That's all you are. You're buying a job, you don't know the process all the way through. You're never gonna get the great deals because you haven't gone through this process through here. So figuring out where you're starting, how do you move yourself along through that path, and eventually getting through that cash flow, private money lending, and or multifamily, and we'll have more detailed topics on that later. All right, I'll end on this. You guys can take a screen on this here. Next class, when is our next class? Anybody? I don't know, I haven't decided yet. 30 days, 45 days, whenever I feel like, I'll put on the next class. So if you want to register and make sure you are invited to the next class, fill this out, and you'll get an email to be invited to this class. 2 more seconds. So what's next? For those of you who have been to a few classes already or can't wait for all 8 sessions that we're going to put on here, and you want to sit down and figure out, how do I partner with somebody and how do I jump into that path somewhere, take a picture of that. And we're creating a database, a network of people to figure out where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, who should we partner you with, and what opportunities are there. Do you want to be a wholesaler, a lender? Do you want to be a developer? We'll reach out to you there and help you through that. Everyone take a picture? All right, good. And that's all. Thank you very much for coming out today. I appreciate you guys coming out. Hope you got something out of it. Thank you again to Barry Taylor for being our DAR president and announcement. Thank you very much to Rich Blessing for our MC today, and our special guest, we have Chris Anthony. Give him a round of applause. All happy to taking it all together. We're officially done, but you guys got to eat everything left on the table. I'll be here. Chris is here. If you have questions one-on-one about investing, I'd be happy to answer that for you.